Alright, today we're going to be taking a look at adding and subtracting unlike denominators. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to add and subtract any fractions that contain unlike denominators. So coming into this lesson, you know that we worked previously with fractions with like denominators. So essentially what we're going to be doing moving forward is that we want to make sure that all of our problems involving fractions always have a common denominator. So in the first problem, we have 1/8 plus 2/7. So what I want to do is I want to look at my denominators, which is the bottom number, 8 and 7, and ask myself, what can both of these multiply into? So we want to look for the least common denominator. Sometimes it might be multiplying one or both numbers by another number, or sometimes it's just multiplying it by the other number. In this case, the only thing I can multiply each number by is the other number to create a common denominator. So in this case, I'm going to take 1/8 and I'm going to multiply it by 7/7. And I'm going to take 2/7 and I'm going to multiply it by 8/8. Because I'm doing the same number on the top and the bottom, we are essentially just multiplying by 1, which if you remember back to the identity property, the number maintains its value. So now I just multiply straight across. 1 times 7 is 7. 8 times 7 is 56. 2 times 8 is 16. 7 times 8 is 56. Now I have the common denominator of 56, and I just simply add 7 plus 16, which gives me 23. And since 23 is a prime number, and it does not actually go into 56, that's as far as we can go, so our final answer would be 23/56. So now let's look at an example that has mixed numbers. Because we're starting to delve into the realm of using negative numbers, the most effective way to do of subtracting mixed numbers is actually changing them into improper fractions first. So I'm going to do 6 times 1 is 6 plus 1 is 7. So this is actually 7/6. 8 times 1 is 8 plus 5 is 13. So I'm going to do 13/8. So now I want to ask, what can 6 and 8 both multiply into, or that are both factors of? I know they both go into 24, so I'm going to take 7/6 and multiply it by 4/4 because 6 times 4 is 24. And then here I'm going to take 13/8 and I'm going to multiply it by 3/3. 7 times 4 is 28, so we have 28/24. Minus 13 times 3 is 39/24. And now we're going to subtract. So 28 minus 39 gives us -11. And because 11 is prime and doesn't go into 24, that is our final answer. So now what I want you to do is go ahead and pause the video. Try both of these problems on your own, see if you can work through them, and then restart and check your work. So we have 1/3 plus 5/8. I know that both of these numbers go into 24, so I'm going to multiply 1/3 times 8/8, and I'm going to multiply 5/8 by 3/3. So this becomes 8/24 plus 15/24. I'm going to add 8 plus 15. It's going to give me 23/24. Right here, because we're adding, we don't need to change it into an improper fraction. We can just leave it. So I have 2 1/6 plus 3/4. I'm going to multiply this by 2/2 and this by 3/3. So this becomes 6 2/12 plus 9/12. 2/12 plus 9/12 gives us 2 11/12. So what happens when we start looking at algebraic expressions? So here we have evaluate t minus 4/5 when t is equal to 5/6. So remember, we're going to take that variable. We're essentially going to substitute in what our given value is. So here we have 5/6. We're subtracting 4/5. The smallest number that 6 and 5 both go into would be 30, so I'm going to multiply 5/6 by 5 over 5 and 4/5 by 6 over 6. This becomes 25/30, and we're subtracting 24/30, which gives me 1/30 in the end. So now I want you to go ahead and pause the video and try this one out on your own. Here we have 5/9 minus a negative 7/12. So a number that 9 and 12 both would multiply into would be, for example, 36. So I'm going to multiply this by 4 over 4, and I'm going to multiply this by 3 over 3. 4 times 5 is 20, 4 times 9 is 36, 7 times 3 is 21, 12 times 3 is 36. Because we're subtracting a negative, if you remember our work with integers, it works the same way. So when I subtract a negative, it actually becomes plus a positive. Now I'm going to add those numbers. 20 plus positive 21 is going to be 41 over 36. Can't be reduced, however we can change it into a mixed number if we wanted. 36 goes into 41 one time with 5 left over. Now let's take a look at what happens in a real life example. In this example, we're looking at a consumer application. So 2 dancers are making necklaces from ribbon for their costumes. They need pieces measuring 13 3/4 inches and 12 7/8. So how much ribbon would be left over after the pieces are cut from a 36-inch length? A couple different ways that you could set this up. For me, I would probably just end up doing 36 minus 13 3/4 minus 12 7/8. But the other way that you could do it is you could actually take 36 minus 13 3/4 and add the 12 7/8 to that before you do the subtraction. Either way is going to produce the same answer. Here, a common denominator would be 8. So if I went the route of adding, I would have 3/4 times 2 times 2, so I would have 13 6/8 plus 12 7/8. 6/8 plus 7/8 is going to be 13/8, which is going to be 1 5/8. Add that to the 13, so I have altogether we have 14 5/8. So now I need to take 36 minus 14 5/8. So 36 becomes 36 over 1, or there's a couple ways you could do this. I'm going to think about it as taking 36 minus 14. It's going to be 22. So I have 22 whole, but then I need to take away 5/8. So if I take away 4/8, that would be a half, so that would be 22 and a half, that would be 4/8. And then minus additional 8, it's going to give me 22 and 3, oh, not 22, but 21 3/8 of a yard. So now why don't you go ahead and pause the video. I know that was a lot to take in, but just try this one on your own and see how you do. So Fred and Jose are building a treehouse. They need to cut 6 3/4 foot piece of wood and a 4 5/12. From a 12-foot board, how much of the board would be left? So I'm going to look at taking 6 3/4, and I'm going to add 4 5/12. Common denominator would be 12, so we have 6 3/4 times 3 times 3. It's going to be 6 9/12 plus 4 5/12. 6 plus 4 is 10. This becomes 14/12, which essentially we take one out, add that to that, so we have 11 2/12, or 11 1/6. So now that we have our total of what that they need to cut, we need to subtract that from our 12. So we're going to do 12 minus 11, 1/6. So if I do 12 minus 11, okay, I have 1, and we're going to subtract 1/6 from it. So 1 is really 6/6 minus 1/6. It's going to give us a final answer of 5/6 the board would be left.